Welcome to Coastal Front. Join us each week as we sit down with the movers and shakers of Vancouver to discuss stories of business, politics, accomplishment, and failure. Our aim is to keep you dialed into what matters most in our city. Now, here's your host, Andrew Johns.
Super. Well, here we are with Brad West. You're the mayor of Port Coquitlam. Thanks for coming in today, Brad.
Thank you for having me.
We got lots to cover and so little time, so much to cover. Let's just dive right into the event that just finished up here, which was the UBCM, the Union of BC Municipalities. You got a lot of press and probably a lot of flack in the media, and maybe some of your peers weren't so happy with you being so outspoken, namely about the People's Republic of China hosting an event there. And did you end up going to this event to just see who was there in attendance and drop off some Tim Hortons?
I made a brief appearance. I didn't get in the door, but I made a brief appearance there. And what that was about was the organizers of a demonstration, a protest that was happening outside of the event. And that was primarily the Hong Kong Canadian Community Association, as well as the local Uyghur community in Vancouver. They organized the protest. They asked if I would come and speak, and absolutely it was my pleasure to do that and offer my support to them, because those are some pretty brave people, let me tell you, with what they're facing and what their families who are still back in China could potentially face because of their outspokenness in this country. But at the end of our speeches, they turned to us and they said to myself and some of the other city councillors who joined me, we've prepared these 2 care packages for the 2 Michaels who are being held hostage, and we're wondering if you'll take them and try and give them to the Consul General. And so we said yes, and so we made our way down through the hotel to the reception. It was interesting. We had hotel security, kind of intervene at the beginning, and we had to show our badges and say, well, we were actually invited as UBCM delegates to be here. And so we made our way down through to the hotel to where the reception was being held. And I did try and respectfully give the care packages to one of the consul officials. As you might imagine, as soon as they saw me, they went running for the hills. So we didn't get very far, but ended up just leaving them on the floor.
Yeah, we have a clip of that. Right so
we left them there.
Here's the clip here as you dropped it on the
there we are. So we weren't able to have anyone take them from us, but we left them, and I think obviously we sent a very strong message that there are elected officials in this province who haven't forgotten that we have 2 Canadian citizens who are being held hostage by the government of China.
With no access to their care or what's the
no
due
lawyers,
process.
No contact with their family. And are basically in this limbo. There is not a.
I mean, let's call it what it is. They basically were attained.
I
mean, they would never admit this, but everybody can see the writing on the wall. They were attained after the CFO of Huawei, and it's the daughter of the founder of Huawei.
That's right.
Was put basically on house arrest and detained here in Vancouver, and she's in her.
It was retaliation.
$7 million home while she sits around waiting for potential extradition to the United States.
Absolutely, it was complete retaliation, and that's why I say they're being held hostage.
Absolutely,
because it's a hostage taking.
100%. Absolutely are, and I'm glad you call it that way. Now, here's something I want to talk about, and I want us to expand a little bit beyond. I mean, to me, for anybody to hear your message and see that the People's Republic of China, the only sovereign government in the entire world that had a sponsorship table or position at the UBCM, not even the government of Canada itself or the United States government would buy a sponsorship spot, but you got the People's Republic of China. I think you'd have to be an absolute moron not to appreciate how much of a conflict of interest this is. So I agree with you, but I want to expand beyond that. I mean, let's look at the top. Let's just start at the top here. Look at the number of names, because I saw this list. I tried to get our own team in there because we as I said to you a little bit earlier before I started filming, we do a lot of business with municipalities.
Yeah.
And we were told that they were already full. It was really unfortunate. I mean, I even offered to take the spot of the People's Republic of China and pay UBCM an extra $4,000 on top just to...
Pretty generous offer.
Yeah,
would have been
didn't
good.
want to take me up on it. But here's the thing I've noticed. You've got some major corporations in here, and it seems to me it's almost like a pay-to-access type program. And you look at names like there's TELUS, CN Rail. You've got organizations like the BC Council for Forest Industries, the new Car Dealership Association. If people want to question why we don't have Uber and Lyft in Vancouver, that association has been paying tens of thousands of dollars in donations to both the BC Liberals and the BC NDP every year for many years. They're a lobby group. They don't, it's going to affect their business. And as you scroll down, you can see other big names. There's a lot of oil and gas companies that are in here. So wanted to see what your thought was around, there you are, right there, Continental Breakfast. You got Trans Mountain Expansion Project. So can you give me a bit of a sense of like your take on these major organizations and lobby groups? BC Fire is a firefighters association as well.
Well, it seems to have become sort of an accepted practice at UBCM that you're going to not only have, mayors and city councillors from around the province, you're going to have every possible lobbyist, special interest group there as well. And I think in actual fact, they probably almost outnumber the number of delegates that are there, right? Like the everywhere you turn, there's a representative of a company or an organization or what have you. And I understand organizations and businesses and others wanting to be able to have access to elected officials and to state their case. And look, as an elected official, as mayor, I meet with all sorts, people request to have meetings with me and I meet with people all the time, in Port Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam businesses who have concerns, community organizations, all that. To me, I think we're losing something at the UBCM. Like, I think at one point it was supposed to be a place where mayors and city councillors from around the province gather. They share experiences, talk about best practices, talk about solutions. And there's a piece of that still happens, but it seems to me, and even my 10 years in municipal office, it is really morphing into, well, it's these receptions. It is, the ability for, different organizations and businesses to, get the ear of elected officials. And I mean, I kind of think it's unnecessary. I mean, if someone contacts my office, whether they're, a resident of Port Coquitlam who are paying taxes in my city, whether they're a business that is located in Port Coquitlam, like, I'm readily available to meet with people. That's part of the job. You don't need to go and pay, write a check to the UBCM to be able to talk to me. So, I have witnessed that, evolution. And what is most concerning to me is, the people who can't afford to write a check are, working people in Port Coquitlam who have a lot of concerns, who can't afford a swanky reception to be able to put their things.
Well, these are the people that, candidly, these are the people that the delegates of UBCM are really accountable to. These are the taxpayers, the residents, and the voters of British Columbia. Not when I see these names like these various oil and gas companies and major law firms and other kind of lobbying groups.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you look at the list, I mean, there are folks where the link to municipal government is pretty tenuous too, right? Like, and I mean, that was part of my issue as well with the government of China's reception. Now, not only do I think it's inappropriate to take a check from the government of China because of their hostile actions against our country and our citizens, along with their own deplorable human rights abuses in their own country and around the world, I also don't think it's the responsibility of mayors and city councillors to be building a relationship with a foreign government. I mean, we're responsible
totally
for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Foreign relations is not one of them.
I'll leave that up to the feds.
And I found it kind of laughable because, one of the responses from some folks who were defending the practice said, well, it's really important to have dialogue with them. Well, they refused to meet with our prime minister. to discuss it. So, Justin Trudeau tried to meet with the premier of China, and he refused. There was, that video went around of him kind of turning his back, not wanting to meet with him. So you want me to believe that the government of China won't meet and have dialogue with our prime minister, but the same government's officials do want to meet and have dialogue with BC mayors and city councillors? Like, why would that be?
Yeah.
So I mean, that to me is
Brad,
another piece of this.
Look, there was plenty of opportunity for the organizers and the decision makers for UBCM to write that check back to the People's Republic of China and really make a statement, the kind of statement I think you would have approved and applauded. There was some talk that came out, I heard about, they have a tight budget and it's hard for them to make ends meet. And I'm like, well, I know factually, because I tried to get a booth at that event, that they said they were completely sold out. And I mean, it's the Vancouver Convention Center. It's not like they couldn't make more room. It's a huge place.
Yeah.
Do you think that do you think the reasoning was maybe one of like being pegged as racist, so that if they turned around and sent that money back, or that there's some kind of maybe retaliation from the People's Republic of China onto maybe the people who, they think that maybe they're in fear? Do you think there was some fear there?
Yeah,
what was the reason that they said, or do you think they genuinely, honestly, these people just that are making these decisions don't think it's a big deal?
Yeah, it's always dangerous to get in someone else's head and to try and figure out what they're thinking. I mean, I heard all of that, right? All of those things. I don't think any of those have any validity to them.
Yeah.
The reality is that, we're talking about the government of China. We're not talking about Chinese people or Chinese Canadians. And
no, not at all. Yeah.
And if you looked at the people who organized the demonstration against the reception, guess what?
They're Chinese.
It was Chinese
people.
Canadians,
yeah, sure,
who were organizing it. So I think that's just sort of nonsensical and gets thrown out as a way to try and just shut down the conversation right then and there. Were they afraid that it would be viewed as insulting to the government of China? Maybe that's it. But quite frankly, too bad. I mean, at some point, we have to be able to find our backbone as a country and say we are not going to allow ourselves to be bullied. They talk about the importance of relationship. What type of relationship do we have where one party completely dictates the terms, can take two citizens of the other countries hostage for retaliation, behave in the manner in which they have, and basically the other party say not a peep about it, or be very muted in their response. And so it was hard to understand. I mean, it was $6,000. I mean, that's part of what came out.
The dollar amount is a lame excuse.
So
were there other elected officials like yourself that supported you in this sort of belief that UBCM should be turning that sponsorship away?
Yeah, there were, and I will give credit to the majority of UBCM delegates who actually voted. 65% of them said the UBCM should not be taking financial contributions from foreign governments, period, which has always been my position. I think that number's too low.
Yeah.
Leads me to scratch my head about those who think it's not a big deal. But still, 65% is a pretty clear message.
Yeah.
Along with that, you did have a number of mayors say they would not attend the event. And I've never attended the event.
Yeah.
But what I understand is that in the past, it's been packed. There's been a lot of people who've gone to it. This year, I think that there was
Any
maybe
idea why? Amazing dim sum.
Well, I don't know. Again, there's people don't like to pass up a reception.
Yeah,
that's what I.
Well, I heard a lot of people raving about the. Everyone was super excited to get to the cannabis reception. That's a new one.
But they did. There was about 100 people. I think 100 or so people who were there this year.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that does send a bit of a message. But I mean, the UBCM, if they're not going to listen to the public who've been really clear on this, at least they will hopefully listen to their own members who have now said 65% of them do not allow this practice to continue in the future.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Last question on this topic. Will you ever travel to China yourself?
I think out of an abundance of caution, I'll probably be steering clear.
Definitely want to make sure you wear some dark sunglasses and a ball cap. All right, let's jump to Port Coquitlam, because I think that so many people end up wanting to talk to you about all this, your views. You sound like you should be probably running for this federal election coming up here, but
no way.
Do you have any aspirations at some point to possibly expand past the municipality of Port Coquitlam and maybe run provincially or federally?
I don't actually. I'll be really candid about that. And people, I know we are conditioned to believe that if someone is, speaking their mind or, appears to be getting attention, that, it must be part of some grand plan that they have to catapult into higher office. I understand people's sort of predilection to thinking that. But I'm not.
That's what I'm thinking.
No, but so I because I've heard that, right?
Yeah,
so
okay.
people, this is he's just trying to set himself up. Honestly, no, and the reason is because I don't think I would do very well in a political party or caucus.
Yeah.
I like to, I have my own sort of thoughts and views on things. I come to them by reflecting upon my values and my upbringing. And I do think that we have a very unhealthy political climate in our country, where, there's good people in all political parties, but something seems to happen to folks when they get into provincial or federal politics, and the ability to think for oneself, to take positions that are truly your own, seems to really go out the window.
Yeah.
And as people might be able to guess, I wouldn't do well with someone phoning me up and saying, "Hey, here's how you're gonna vote, or here's how you're gonna think on this issue." Like that's just not what I'm about.
Yeah.
And so no, I love being the mayor of Port Coquitlam. It's my hometown. It's the city I've lived in my entire life. Yeah. My wife and I are raising our family there, and I intend to be there for a long time to help shape that community.
Great. Well, that's great. And I agree with you. I think that the big party politics are the biggest problem towards our democracy today. I mean, you can see it in the States, and I think it's developing here in Canada as well. So let's go to Port Coquitlam. First question I have for you on Port Coquitlam is on housing. Both homelessness and just affordability of housing. How are you guys doing with that today? I have to admit I don't know too much about Port Coquitlam. I've rarely been there, so I don't know if this is a major issue for you. And how's the BC government doing as far as helping you guys out?
Sure, it's a big issue in our community. We're not dissimilar, I think, from every municipality in Metro Vancouver. The thing that's been interesting is Port Coquitlam's, so much of Port Coquitlam's kind of character has been tied to the fact that it has always been a more affordable place for people to move to and raise a family. I mean, that certainly was my family's history. My parents moved to Port Coquitlam from North Burnaby in the 80s because it was affordable, and they wanted to raise their children in a great community with good schools, safe, all that stuff. And still today, that is, I think, the defining characteristic of Port Coquitlam, and it attracts a lot of young people, a lot of people my age, to the community. But we were certainly not immune to what happened when the housing market became completely detached from local economic conditions. And so our response to that has, I think, been fairly robust in terms of what the municipality has been able to do. And what it has meant, it has been significant effort put into expanding housing options within the community, understanding that depending on what stage of life you're at, your housing needs are different. And so really trying to focus on having that full spectrum of housing choices available for people in our community. So, on duplexes, on coach homes, on all of these things, we've been early adopters and have really kind of led the way in opening up more and more areas of the community to allow those different types of housing choices.
Okay.
At the same time, I kind of, when it comes to development in the community, I really think that for too long, we've kind of been absent from the game in terms of sitting down with people who want to build in our community and talking about what the community's expectations are as well. And, some people have, been a little less charitable about it and said, like, there was a time when, whatever proposal came through, rubber stamped, right? And
so developers led the way, basically.
They, I think, really dictated some of the terms. And what we've done, I like to sit down and see the whites of people's eyes.
Sure.
And so, we've been really upfront about what are the types of things that we want to see from development in Port Coquitlam. So one of the changes we made was we're not going to have developments of just the whole building be one-bedroom condos.
Right.
And there were some development applications that were like that. Mm-hmm. We want to see places where real people can live. So, families and not
not that just the people who live in one-bedroom condos aren't real.
No, of course they're real, but
you got to, like you said,
try raising 2 kids in a one-bedroom condo, right? You have to have 100%. Places where people, can raise a family.
Yeah.
Right. And
if you as government don't somewhat dictate that, and you leave it to the market's going to probably just build a ton of one-bedroom condos because that's where you get the most bang for your buck.
And that's what happened, right? And the answer was, don't interfere in that. Let the market dictate.
Yeah. Then you might get a bunch of guys like Ross living in your community.
I know, and we're allowed. A couple Rosses are okay, but you don't want to have. Yeah, that's right. But but again, it's recognizing that the full spectrum of housing options have to be there for people. So you know what.
So it's not that you guys are anti-development.
No, we haven't. No,
you just want to have more, well thought out planned development.
The track record in Port Coquitlam is probably 99.9% of development applications get approved. What I think we're doing better now is being being upfront about it. Because that's one of the things I've certainly heard from developers and builders is, look, we get there's requirements. We want to know at the beginning what they are. Don't throw us a curveball at the end. So we've been really upfront. We want family-friendly housing, so we want 2 and 3 bedroom places in these development projects as well. We are also now saying that, if you're looking for additional density, and it makes sense and it's supported by good planning principles, we'll support that. We know that makes a project much more financially lucrative. And so the community needs to see some benefit of there as well. We have requirements now around percentage of affordable non-market rental units in development projects. So there's been a lot of work on kind of that side of things as well. The other thing I'm really proud of is we had the first instance in Port Coquitlam of a potential renoviction taking place. And we've seen that throughout Metro Vancouver, in Vancouver and Burnaby probably most prominently. Mm-hmm. There are literally thousands of people who've been, have been renovated or dem-evicted out of their homes. We had a case in Port Coquitlam where there is an apartment building. It was about 50 years old, but exceptionally well maintained. And we knew that because we have a long record of building permit applications for all the improvements that have been made. So the previous owner came in regularly and made a whole bunch of improvements, and rents increased very modestly because obviously if you're investing money into a place and going to upgrade it, you need to see a return on that investment. Totally get that. But we had the first instance of a developer purchasing that property when the previous owner passed away, and saying, we need to do a big renovation, and so 100 people, most of who were seniors, 2 of who were veterans, you're out. And we're going to put in some new flooring. We're going to put in some new appliances. We're going to do some kind of window dressing. And sure, you can come back in, but guess what? Your rent has doubled, right? And we took, fairly aggressive and immediate action on that. And we're ultimately successful in having that developer back down on that plan, I have to drive past that apartment building every single day to get home. And every single day I can drive past it and know that we took action to make sure that those people still have a home. And guess what? The renovations are happening right now, and they're happening with people still in their home, not having been evicted and not having their rents doubled. So, there's been
that's a great story.
There's been a lot of things that we have done. Is there more to do? Absolutely. But I think we're pressing forward on a number of different fronts. This is not a issue where there is a silver bullet. So there's a number of things that need to come into play. The community is growing by leaps and bounds. We are trying to improve our efficiency and processing, because I do think it's absolutely ridiculous that some of these development projects can take years to wind their way through the city process. It just that is unacceptable. So I think there's certainly validity to a number of the concerns that have been expressed on the red tape and the delays, and I'm really committed to trying to ensure that our process in Port Coquitlam is as efficient and straightforward as possible, while at the same time making sure that we're not just letting the developer write all the rules and just there to rubber stamp whatever they bring forward with, being really clear with our expectations, but getting more housing options for people, getting more supply. And then obviously I've been very outspoken and supportive of the provincial government's efforts to clamp down on a number of the influences that I think did lead to some of the detachment of our housing market from local economic conditions. Those are things outside the realm of the municipality. But
trickle effect out into Port Coquitlam.
But sure. I mean, and I saw that, and we've seen and experienced that. So I think again, you have this debate ends up always being characterized by you either have to do this or this. And, my view has been that we need to be doing, I think, probably a bunch of both. And that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay. Well, it's great. Thank you for that. It's a good insight. With respect to the provincial government, it sounds like you're in favor of some of these initiatives they've taken to try and stem the amount of empty homes, offshore money coming in and driving up real estate prices. I think that's what you're alluding to. Let's talk about Port Coquitlam and how's the province done as far as supporting you in building out affordable housing projects, co-op housing. Do you have a homelessness issue at all in Port? Are there homeless people in Port? There are.
There are. Yeah.
I apologize again for my
No.
I got to come out and visit you.
Please do.
Yeah, but so have they? I know Selena Robinson has been quite vocal about. She feels they're being quite successful in getting a lot of these people off the streets. Do you have some comments on that?
I think like most communities, we do have homelessness issues. Our community, along with Coquitlam, was one of the first to actually, before all the push around temporary modular housing, was probably one of the first to have a homeless shelter in kind of the suburbs. So it's on Gordon Avenue. And it has done a couple of things. I mean, obviously it has provide a center for homeless people in the Tri-Cities. It has also had some impacts as well, and I think it's important to recognize those. There's, this is, I don't think we do ourselves any service by kind of sugarcoating that, all we do is, put a modular housing thing up and, people go in there and then that's it, solved. Yeah. I don't think it's that easy. And so we're dealing with a number of the issues that go along with that. But clearly they have put more emphasis on this than there has been in the past. I mean, you ask what have they done? I guess it was probably 2 weeks ago, I was at an announcement in Port Coquitlam where you have the provincial government and the city and Metro Vancouver and a nonprofit housing provider coming together to do a affordable housing project in our community, 80 plus homes, and it kind of is a tiered thing where there will be some homes for people basically on a shelter rate, the lowest social assistance rate that you can have, and then it will be tiered for people who, you know what, I mean, I always say, where does the person who works at the grocery store live?
Sure.
You know, like there's a
absolutely.
lot of working people out there.
Yeah.
And you know, and they need a place to live.
Absolutely.
And you know, they're not dealing with you know, maybe some of the issues associated with homelessness. They're just, you know, they're out there. They get up every day. They go to work. You know, but maybe they make $15 an hour.
Yeah.
And you know, the options.
They got to find a way to be able to afford to pay the bills and
for sure, right?
And also save.
And so, you know, this is a project that is kind of, I think one of the things that's great about this particular project is there's different tiers within it. So it's not a 100% just shelter rate sort of social housing project as we would think about it. It's a mix. And I know that there is a lot of emphasis placed on helping people who are experiencing homelessness, supportive of that. But I'm really concerned about the working people in Port Coquitlam, single parents and others who are a paycheck away from being homeless. And you know, my view is that if we can do something to help those people, get them some housing security, it's better for them, it's better for their children, and it's a heck of a lot
it's way
easier.
better for the community as well.
Way better for the community, and it's a heck of a lot better than trying to help them after, you know, after they've lost their housing, right? And they are homeless. So, you know, focusing on working families has been a big emphasis of mine. And that's a project that I think, you know, I kind of look at as a bit of a model that I'd like to see more of.
Is there a name for the project?
It's called the Alex.
The Alex.
The Alex.
Okay, that's what the name of the building will be?
That's the name, and it's the Atira Society is the nonprofit housing provider that's involved in it.
Great. I know you've got to go. So in wrapping this up, this is the Port Coquitlam website. For people like myself who haven't been to Port Coquitlam, is it a place that I should take my kids for a day or on the weekend to go visit?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is, you know, some people kind of call it like the hidden gem of Metro Vancouver.
Okay.
It's an amazing community. It is, as I said, it's a community that is increasingly the go-to place for young families.
Yeah.
We've just opened a phase 1 of a brand new $132 million community center,
Really?
Which probably is without rival in Metro Vancouver. It's absolutely phenomenal, with ice rinks and a pool and community space right in the heart of our downtown.
Really?
Our downtown is such a unique, cool spot in Metro Vancouver. You actually feel like you're in a kind of small town downtown with lots of great mom and pop serve stores. We have, I would say, unrivaled access to the outdoors. We have, you know, we're bound by 3 rivers. We have amazing trails.
Yeah.
So I think we have a lot going on for ourselves.
I noticed you tweeted about some recent brewery or something like
that.
Yeah,
I mean, that was one of the things that I'm really proud of. Within my first 100 days, we doubled our seating capacity for our breweries to really allow them to come into their own. So we now have 3 breweries, craft breweries. A 4th is going to be opening. We have a craft distillery place that is kind of got a really cool vibe to it. A lot of, you know, again, young people, young families go there. I mean, sometimes my wife and I take our son. We go there to meet other parents, and you see as many like young children there as you do parents. So it's kind of, it's a great community.
Great.
And encourage people to come check us out. We have a lot going on, and I think
a good place to move to as well.
It is. I mean, you know, what is, you know, some people find attractive about it is it is the furthest east you can go from Vancouver without crossing a bridge. So you don't cross a bridge.
Didn't know that statistic.
That I don't think that's our big selling feature. People just point that out.
Yeah.
But
golf course there too.
Yeah.
Westwood Plateau.
oh, now you've made the cardinal sin, which is unfortunately Westwood Plateau is in Coquitlam.
Oh, way to go, Ross.
But we do have a golf course.
Now they're not going to build any single one bedroom.
Yeah, you were probably already screwed, but even more so now. No, well, we do have a golf course, Carnoustie Golf Course, it's just it's a private course, but I'm sorry, it is open to the public. I just mean that it's not owned by the city.
Yeah.
Burnaby owns some golf courses, but we don't. But it's an amazing community. As I said, I've lived there my entire life. I probably know every square inch of it, and
That's great.
encourage people to come check it out. It's awesome.
Well, I got to say, I really this is refreshing. I really appreciate a guy like you being willing to kind of stick his neck out and speak, even though you are the mayor for Port Coquitlam. You've taken on some pretty big topics over the last year, since you've been almost a year now since you become mayor. But you're obviously still very passionate about the city. I wish you the best of luck. Thanks for coming into Coastal Front today, and hope to have you back soon.
Well, thanks for having me. Big shout out to my buddy Neil from Belcarra.
Brad West, Mayor of Port Coquitlam. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.